this is Natalie with the Fifth Journey. I'm going to be rendering leaf lard today. Leaf lard is the fat that is around the kidneys on a hog, and it is supposed to be the cleanest, purest fat there is, and it's really good for using in pastries. But what I'm going to be rendering it for is for using in soap making, and this is from a local butcher, and it is AWA certified. So we're going to be doing kind of a joint project, and I'll be making some soaps for him using the leaf lard. So I picked this up yesterday. It is frozen, and I'm going to be rendering it in a slow cooker or a crock pot, and I have it on the keep warm setting because you want to have it on the lowest setting as possible, because if you do it too hot and too fast, then it can burn it and you can end up with a browner color, and it can kind of give it the piggy scent, piggy taste. So if you're using it for just cooking in general or frying, then that's fine. But if you're doing it for pastries, you want to do it as slow as possible. And with the soaps, it doesn't really matter either way, but I want to make sure and do it correctly. So I'm going to be doing it very slowly. So I anticipate this taking probably most of the day for it to cook down. And I have about 9 pounds. I've cut up maybe half of it in there. I'm not quite sure how much more I'll be able to get in here, and then I will slowly add to it as it cooks down. So what I did is I went ahead and put a half a cup of water in there in the pot, and it will evaporate out as it cooks, but that'll at least keep it from scorching as it begins to melt, because I don't want that to happen. And then once it is starting to melt, then I'll ladle off the top and put it into containers to store for later, and I'll keep it either in the fridge or the freezer just to make it last longer. But I'm going to go ahead and start cutting this up. This, like I said, it is frozen. It's a lot easier to cut when it is frozen. So I've got about half, and I think you should be able to see that in there. So I've got those cut up in fairly small pieces. The smaller pieces you have, the easier it is for it to melt and to melt faster. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll fast forward through this, but I'll show you what I do when I cut it. And again, cutting it when it's frozen is way easier than if you're going to do it when it is soft. All right, I'm on my last little bit, and I wanted to talk a little bit, pause here. So I've been working on this for about 40 minutes from the time that I got the crock pot out and everything. And this was about 9 pounds of leaf lard, and it's starting to soften up and it's starting to stick. So you definitely want to keep it frozen, and if you're doing a large amount, you may want to keep it in the freezer and then get it out like piece by piece as you're doing it, because it's getting harder to cut as you do this, and it just kind of mushes around the knife. So, and see how it's sticking, and it's sticking to the paper. So I have the waxy side up, like the inside, but it's starting to stick to everything, and my hands are getting all slimy. So definitely keep it frozen. See how I'm like pushing on that and it's not really cutting, just because it's just mushing around it. So definitely keep it frozen. It's sticking to the knife, but I'm almost done with this. And then we'll come back in probably an hour or so, and I will show you the progress. And if you notice, I'm kind of mashing it down with my hand because there are layers underneath that are melting. So this is the large crock pot, as you can see, and I've got about 9 pounds in here, and I don't think I could get any more in this pot. So last little bit. See that smushing around it? It's getting a lot more difficult to cut. So I can't even imagine doing this if it's completely thawed out. I think it would just be an oily gosh awful mess. So all right, that's the last of it. So I'm going to smash it in here, and then I'm going to clean up. We'll come back to take a peek in about an hour. So I've been, like I said, I started this about 40 minutes ago, and for 9 pounds. So see you back in a bit. Hey, it's been an hour and I've been smashing it down with the potato masher, avocado masher, and you can see it's starting to soften up, melt along the edges, and this is at the keep warm, super low temperature. So I'm gonna come back another hour and keep mashing down as we go. Sorry for the shaking. Okay, so it has actually been 2 hours. I got distracted on doing another project and I had turned on low. I meant to only do that for a little bit. So it did cook a little bit. You can see that one's a little bit brown along the edges, but it doesn't have a smell. So I'm thinking I'm going to turn it back down to low again because see the middle part has, I mean that's still kind of cold in the middle because remember it was frozen. So I'm going to give it a good stir, but you can see how it is melting, so I think it'll be okay. It was just a little bit on the edges, so I think we'll be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a good stir and come back and put it again on that low, and then come back and check on it again. Okay, we're about 6 hours in from when I got everything cut and put into the pot, and add another hour or 40 minutes or so on to when I started cutting. So we're getting a lot of good melted lard here. Still have quite a ways to go. I've upped the temperature back to the low temperature because it just really wasn't doing much with the keep warm setting. So that was good to get it started, but you guys have to remember to keep stirring it. So the next time I do this, I'll probably start it earlier in the day, or even maybe do it at night before bed and have it in the crock pot really low. So we still have a ways to go. I'm going to start ladling it off here pretty soon and then let it cook down some more from there. And we're actually fast forwarding quite a bit right now. It's the next day. So I started this adventure with the cutting at about 11:40 yesterday, and just slowly cooking it down because remember we had 9 pounds of the unrendered leaf lard. And when you're doing this, of course you have to do it slow and it takes a long time. So I want you to be prepared that it does take a long time because you don't want to speed it up. So this is one of the ones that I did yesterday, and it is really a pretty creamy white color, and I have 2 quarts and then another one that is this size in there, and I'll at least get another one of these. So what I ended up doing, and next time I do this I will start it the night before, and because it takes a long time since it's frozen, for the middle part to soften up and start to melt. But once it does, then you start to get the layer on top, which you've seen in the videos or the little clips earlier. Once it starts to melt down, then you want to go ahead and start ladling it off, and it allows the rest of it to melt down a little bit faster, because once that happened it started doing a little faster. But you know, last night, because I came back every hour or whatever and strained some off, and you know, it's bedtime, so I'm like, I'm just going to put it on low and let it go some more. And I have some errands to run today, so I'll go ahead and ladle some off today, or this morning, and then come back. But I'm not really too concerned. But I have it on the keep warm setting. I left that on overnight, but that's what I'll do the next time. On these jars, this is actually a spaghetti sauce or marinara sauce jar that you can get at Aldi's, and these we actually keep for honey for our personal use, so you just clean them out really good. But it's nice because it has measurements on it, and these are just really cool jars, so we clean them up really good for that. Even though I'm going to be measuring, since I'm using this for soap, I'll be measuring by weight versus volume. But if you're doing something where you want something with volume, this is really good to use. So go ahead and ladle off some of this. As you can see, I had that out last night, and the lid does get hot, so I put this away. Now one thing, as it cooks down, and if you have it too hot, it will start smelling a little bit, you know, that piggy scent, but it doesn't smell like bacon, it doesn't smell anything. You know, when I first started, you know, the first half of the day, it smelled like stock, like a very light, maybe chicken stock or something like that, or a vegetable stock even. It didn't smell like anything. And last night it kind of got a little warm, so it started to have a little bit of a smell, but I don't smell it. And, you know, first thing in the morning, coming into the kitchen with a roast smell doesn't really smell very good. But it's good. So you want to make sure and have one of these gloves or an oven mitt or something, because this, you have to start tilting it and it does get hot. So it's getting there. So when you're planning on doing this, if you're doing smaller batches, it won't really be too bad. But if you're going to be doing a bulk amount, because I like to just do it once instead of having to haul this stuff out all the time, I will do it on a weekend. Probably start on a Friday night, cut it all up, and then slowly through the weekend get it all strained out. And I'll have to do this in phases. So once you get down to the bottom, it does take a little bit longer. So that's probably as much as I'm going to get out of there right now. Go ahead and let that strain out. And then I'll pour some into the jar. And then we'll come back again and we'll get a final look to see how much I actually get, because I was kind of part of this, seeing how much I get out of this and how much is usable versus how much is actual waste. So we will be back after a while.